Welcome to Object of the Game with Coach Chuck Kyle. I am Maureen Kyle, and this is a show where we're talking about the lessons learned by playing sports. And this kind of evolved from us chatting about how sports is nowadays, with whether you're a parent, whether you're coaching, or maybe you are a teen who's playing sports and wondering, where is this going? We have a great guest today talking about the college level. Dad, one of the coaches that you've talked to over the years who has coached at all levels. But really what we're going to focus on is getting from that high school level to the college level. And I know now that my friends are starting to get into that phase, and if they have athletes, that's the big question is, all right, what should we be looking at? And the college landscape has changed so much. I know it's something you talk about when we're, sitting around chatting about how sports is going now, but what do you think about all
I
of
certainly
it?
would. With Scott, we're going to talk about the
Yeah,
division.
Scot Loeffler, Bowling Green.
Yes, I'm sorry.
We're-
Scott Loeffler is head coach at Bowling Green
Yeah.
University. Known him for a long time.
Yeah.
And we'll go into the Division One scenario right now, and it goes on. But let's take it in a really important way. If your son played high school football and would love to play in college, now what ends up happening, Division One? Now maybe the Lord didn't give him that kind of size or that kind of speed or whatever. That doesn't mean he can't play, and it doesn't mean, oh well, if it's not Division One, forget it. No. I wish you would just not even think that, because what basically you can do here, Division Three, Division Two, their job is to, maybe they don't have scholarships. Division Two has some, but Division Three doesn't. But it's the college job to make it financially plausible for your son to go there. Okay, that's number one. That's their job. Number two, he really still wants to play, great. Fine. Here's this small college that the coach, I'd love for that kid to come play on my team. What ends up happening? If that college has the program that your son's really interested in, and the coach can, in that Division Three, can go to the admissions office and say, hey, really, can I put a good word in for that kid? Love to have him on our team, things like that. Well, that helps get him into that college. And that happens way more, believe me, way more than the Division I's major college. And locally, I've been the guy running a recruiting night where we have as many as the greater Cleveland high schools as we can. We assemble in this big gym, and the Division Three, Division One AA, Division One AA, and Division Two can come that night, get all the information about kids that are at that level. Mm-hmm. They, instead of trying to run around the city to each high school, they come, and in 2.5 hours they get all the information they need. Then they contact the kid. Then the process starts going. So thousands and thousands of kids have benefited by that situation that I'm just talking about, that college recruiting night. And they go to, okay, right, they're not going to play in front of 70,000 people, but they're going to have fun playing football and getting the degree at the college that they feel best for that degree. Mm-hmm. That's a great step in life. And football helps that, and other sports can do that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when we're going to talk to Scott, we're talking about some of the changes that you've seen just with portal and with the divisions and how that's played out. But you're going to love this conversation. It's also like being on a fly on the wall with them, because this is how they would normally have their conversations. So you're going to see what it's like for college coach to be talking to high school coach that they've known each other for years.
Right. How many times he stopped by the office, on his recruiting. As he's doing it, he's on the process of doing it right as we're talking to him.
Yeah.
He's in Cincinnati. He's not even near Bowling Green because he's in a recruiting situation.
Yeah.
But we would sit there for an hour just talking about football in general and talking about the situations and so on. So.
Yeah. So we have that today, and it's going to be really insightful, and you're going to have a lot of fun listening to it. So when we return, we are going to have Scot Loeffler, head coach of Bowling Green. Welcome back to Object of the Game. You know, a lot of us have been focusing on college football, so you're going to want to pay attention to our next guest because we're going to focus a little bit on the ins and outs of certain conferences and, of course, what it's like to be coaching at that college level. So, Dad, tell us who we have today.
All right. Well, this young man, 1970, no, I don't know, 80-something. Right, 1980 something. I'm at a scrimmage down in Barberton, and they're scrimmaging Akron-Buckdell. We played Akron-Buckdell the first game of the year. And I look out there, and there's this tall, strong-armed quarterback throwing the ball all over the place, right? And you're hearing, oh, yeah, he's being recruited. He's being recruited. Yeah, that was Scot Loeffler. What do you know about that, huh? Do you remember that scrimmage by any way? I was up in the crowd there, big guy. I was.
Locked in, to be quite honest with you. They, Tim Flossie and those guys had a bunch of really good players over at Buckdell, and they were physical and strong, and they could run. And so that had to be like my sophomore year in high school, probably.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So you were making that impression in sophomore year.
He was a tall, lanky.
I don't know about that. I was a guy that could just throw the football around a little bit.
Oh, he could spin it.
Yeah.
He could spin it. Well, anyway, Scot Loeffler, ladies and gentlemen, he's Barberton High School, obviously, but goes on to play at University of Michigan. We're going to get into his story because we've had Charles Bentley. There was an injury, and we'll let you tell that story because that there's people out there and young kids maybe that think, well, I would or I could have, but okay, things happen, adversity, and you come back from it. And it was because of he's at Michigan, and he'll tell you how that may have gotten you into the coaching business. How's that?
It totally did, Chico. I ended up choosing the University of Michigan primarily because of Bo. Coach Schembechler was quite close to our family. And obviously the Bodner twins, which you mentioned earlier, were from Barberton. That's Larry Ricks. A lot of really good players from my high school ended up going to Michigan. But my grandmother was tight with Millie Schembechler. And actually, I lived with my grandmother my sophomore, junior, and senior year. My mom and dad moved to Columbus, Ohio. My dad had a really good job opportunity. And, at the time, Columbus, Ohio was a little bit different. My mom and dad moved on in a neighborhood that you wouldn't even recognize today just because of the population increase. But so I wanted to finish my high school career at Barberton. I lived with my grandmother. Everyone thought that for sure that I would go to Ohio State with my parents moving down there. But I chose Michigan. It was a great fit academically and athletically. And lo and behold, I find myself beating three guys out, and I'm the backup quarterback as a true freshman.
Oh, wow.
And I tore my rotator cuff right before the Ohio State game. Didn't tell anyone. Because I had some competition behind me, and I get to the bowl game and I literally can't throw it from me to you, Chico. It was unbelievable. But had rotator cuff surgery. A couple years later, tried to come back, had another surgery, and that party was over. And there was a guy named Brian Greasy who walked on behind me. They ended up scholarshiping Brian after I got hurt. And I really honestly believe everything happens for a reason. The next thing you know, I'm working as a student assistant at a very young age. Was given a ton of responsibility, moved into a GA role very quickly, and lo and behold, go to Central Michigan for a year. And the next thing you know, I'm hired at age 24 back coaching the quarterbacks at Michigan. Right. But to be honest with you, I had no intentions. I was going to go, no intentions of getting into coaching. I was going to get my law degree, get my MBA.
I read that somewhere. Yeah, you were going to be a lawyer. There you go.
I was going to be an attorney. Yeah. And I fell in love with this great game. And I'm so glad that I'm teaching kids how to take a rhythm 5 off of a bounce and weave through a progression and have great body position, fundamentals, toughness. So I'm blessed every day. You look back, whenever you get hurt, like, and you're in such a good position to be the next guy, you know, you look back now and you go, everything happens for a reason, for sure.
Yeah. You were a 3-sport guy. I always want to say, let kids know out there they can play multiple sports in high school, right? You were a 3-sport guy, weren't you?
I really honestly believe in that. I think as long as kids need to be as kids as long as they possibly can. And I'm always intrigued in recruiting of being able to go in and find out a kid runs track, he plays football, he's on the basketball court. I just think, the year-round ability to compete and be a great teammate, I think it's really, really important. And what's happening right now is everyone's getting so specific in one area of athletics. And I don't know how good that is for kids in the long run. I think, being a part of a team, being able to compete every day, being able to handle adversity, there's nothing like it. And I think as a young, ninth grader all the way through your senior year, if you can play year round, I think that really gives you an edge whenever you get to college, because when you do get to college, it is specific.
Right.
And
Sure.
but you're competing every single day, and I think you kind of lose that edge of competition unless you're being trained to do it, ninth through your senior year.
Yeah. Even in your youth, right? You're in Barberton, so I can imagine the pickup basketball games were pretty good up at the playground.
They were, Chico,
They had
just
to.
like unbelievable.
Was
You
that-
would go up to these parks, and the kids from Akron would come down. You would go literally in the most competitive, just unbelievable competition that you did. There's pro basketball players. I mean, Kenny Robertson, Elvin Robertson, who played forever in the Spurs, is up there. And you got to learn real quick how to compete in my little hometown. And that's the one thing that I took from being from Barberton is the competition aspect was terrific. And coming from a blue collar city, learning how to work and learning how to have gratitude for every single thing you got, I thought was perfect. But the competition in the parks, Chico, was unbelievable. I mean, it was college and pro basketball players, and you learned real quick that you better figure out the game. If not, you weren't going to be playing because they weren't going to pick you on your team. That's for sure.
There's a matter of pride there, right?
You were not going to get picked, and I always loved playing with the older kids, so they'd kick my ass left and right, and I loved it though. You learned how to compete against really, really good competition.
Well, that's exactly an important statement right there. Kids, come on, they're 15, 16, 17 years old, and yeah, you work out in the off season, and once you get to college, come on, it's full cycle of a year that you're working. It's all football and all that. But when you're a high school kid and there's that playground up there, that's excitement to go up there and really prove to yourself you can compete on that level. Hey, that runs into any other sport too, that competition and that challenge that you have.
Yeah, I miss the and we force our kids to do it. You were pushed out of the house at 7 o'clock in the morning, and you came back for a quick lunch if you didn't stop at your buddy's house and grab a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and you competed all the way till the street lights went on. And the games that that we created and made, I really thought, looking back, the ability to create your own games, the ability to make your own rules. I really think that you learned a ton of leadership skills by creating your own games, competing. And God forbid, if you ever lost, you were playing again, and you were going to play again until you won. And, I miss those days. And I think that's being lost a little bit right now in our society. And, with our kids that we have right now, we've got three kids, one's in college and the other two are 14 and 10. We try to push them outside and get them away from the video games and try to make them go out and play their own games. I think things are just so organized in today's world that they're kind of losing some leadership ability because everything is organized.
Scott, you guys are You have so many parallels, by the way. I've hated to interrupt. I mean, you guys are like, there's a lot of similarities to how your career started and how my dad's career started. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. Before we take a break, I do want to ask, though, because you kind of teed it up. I mean, here you are playing basketball, just pick up basketball, and you're learning all these lessons, and then you become a successful high school football player. When you were playing football in high school, did you ever think back to those moments playing pickup basketball in your neighborhood, like, and did any of those skills or any of that grit translate out on the football field?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I'll never forget, Jack Reynolds, he weeded you out so fast when you were so young. It was unbelievable. I mean, you would get sued for this in today's world, but I'll never forget as an 8-year-old, he's putting a basketball in the middle of the gym floor. The two kids would be at each baseline, and you would run and have to dive for the ball. And it was a full out war to get the basketball, number one. There'd be busted noses, bloody lips, and you had to score. And he found out really fast if you were tough and you had to compete, and, in today's world, you can never, ever do that. And probably you'd look back and go, it was half crazy, but you really learned how to compete. You learned how to be tough. And I think the biggest thing that, what I learned from my hometown and in athletics was how to be a good teammate. I was blessed to be a very good athlete. I was blessed to have a ton of opportunities. But, when I was in high school, I never got into recruiting. I just wanted to play and win for my team and help our team and be the most selfless guy that I could possibly be. And that really translated into college. I wanted to always be a great teammate. And I think in today's crazy world that we're living in with this coaching thing, I just want to be the best person that I possibly can in my organization to help the staff, to be able to help the players and be the most selfless person that I could possibly be.
We have so much more to expand on, Scott. Stay with us for a second. We're going to have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about Scott's success at Bowling Green, but also how he got there. And then, Dad, I'm going to make you tell a story when we come back. So we'll be right back with more Object of the Game. Welcome back to Object of the Game. We are talking with Scot Loeffler, head coach of Bowling Green. And you kind of touched on it before when we were talking about, how you went through an injury. That's how you got into coaching. But that is how you got into coaching too. And so when you were telling that story, I'm thinking, gosh, have you guys ever talked about this? This is how coaching careers might start.
I don't think we ever really did. Yeah, at John Carroll University, I dislocated my shoulder, and of course back then, you're all right, just do this, you'll be okay. Nothing. You never heard of the torn labrum? No, they didn't even talk about that. Yes, I have a torn labrum to this day. Because but I you could tell. I'm sure this happened to you. You're trying to come back, and the trainers are going, keep doing this, keep doing that. And you're going, I don't know here. But the same, what you were talking about, you start realizing, but then there's, you can feel bad about that and not playing, but then if you love the game, and there'll be opportunities, and you got to be just aware of that. And that's what would love to get into, because I got, a phone call going, hey, would you just want to just come down and, because I was going to go into teaching, and why don't you come down and, help out a little bit? And that started it 55 years ago, whatever it is, And here's this injury that comes to you, and talk about that they could maintain your scholarship by you help coaching, right? That's how that worked.
Yeah, that's how I maintained my scholarship was Coach Carr. Yeah, so I started out playing for Gary, Coach Moeller. And then whenever I finally got what they called a medical scholarship, it was a way that they could go recruit another player, yet still keep me on aid. And so I had to either work in the weight room, work in academics, work in recruiting, or work in football. And we had such a great room. I mean, we had an NFL just full of NFL quarterbacks. So I wanted to help them, and so that's how it all started.
Yeah.
What were you like when you were graduate coaching? How involved were you? Like, were they really relying on you to coach? Were you kind of?
I was. Because of so the first couple years when I was an undergrad, I would work with the quarterbacks, and then believe it or not, I was on defense. And probably the best thing that ever occurred was being with Coach Herman, the defensive coordinator, for a couple years as an undergrad. And then when I became a graduate assistant, Coach Parrish and Coach Carr, just because of, I was so far along, really relied on me to do a bunch, to be quite honest, way more than what a normal graduate assistant would do. And it's just because I had time there. I mean, I was already in almost my third year of coaching before I became a graduate assistant. So, just like I said at the beginning, everything happens for a reason. And, it happened to your dad, Coach Kyle. And I hate to say this, I'm so glad that Coach Kyle got hurt, because without a doubt, my favorite school to ever go into was St. Ignatius High School, and it's because of Chuck Kyle. Chuck Kyle, in my opinion, is one of the greatest people and greatest coaches that I would ever been around. And I would always go in there, and I would always have a notebook, and I would always walk out and write things that he would say down. And, I'm still trying to get him to come up to training camp to be around us, because I know he can help us.
We did talk about this.
Chuck Kyle is hands down one of my favorite coaches and people that I've been around.
Well, thank you. You're more than kind in doing that. But he helped. When your involvement in the coaching, you've coached a few quarterbacks. Unbelievable.
I'm been lucky. I think I've had 10 NFL dudes.
Yes.
Wow. Oh my God.
Been lucky.
Yes. I mean,
So who? Name some names.
You worked with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Right.
Brady, started working with him when he was a rookie, when he was a freshman, and helped stand with him. Had Henson, Navarre, Henny, Gutierrez, which Matt was a unbelievable story. Matt Gutierrez, I probably invested more time into Matt Gutierrez than any of them, and started with him when he was a freshman, recruited him. He was behind Navarre, and it's time for him to be the starting quarterback. And this guy just busted his tail. The typical Michigan story, you sit 3 years, it's your fourth year, it's time for you to be the guy. And that was the case with Matt. And we busted our tails to put him in that position. And then probably one of the hardest things that I've ever been a part of is we recruit the superstar out of Eastern Pennsylvania named Chad Henne. And Chad walked in the door as a true freshman and beat Matt out. And that was probably, looking back, one of the most difficult things, because you invested so much time into Matt, and you knew what type of guy he was. And unfortunately, he was beat out by a guy with just a little bit more talent than him. But Matt ended up going. He was before the transfer world. He transferred to a 1AA place. Was at New England for a while. Got to play some pro football. So, but he's a superstar too. But those Michigan quarterbacks were special, and in every aspect of the world. They were great leaders. They were tough as hell. Their preparation was off the charts. Their fundamentals were off the charts. And if Coach Carr, Chico, would have never retired, I'd still be coaching the quarterbacks at Michigan. I'd have never left.
Yeah, he was a great human being, Lloyd. I mean, he'd come in, stop by, and I
still, Chico, in the off season, I go see him once a month, and he's doing well. He's fighting some things health-wise, but he's doing well.
Yeah, he's fun to be with. He really was. Now
good man.
You go on now. You had a year with the Lions?
Yeah, a year with the Lions, and
a lot of places.
That was a great experience. We were terrible. We were god awful. Probably the worst football team I've ever been associated with. But Dan Campbell was actually our tight end. It was his last year playing. So Dan was there, and we were god awful though, Chico. Oh my gosh. Like when God said bad, we came running.
Oh my gosh.
But bunch of good people, great people.
So when you're part of that type of team where you're just looking around and you're like, oh gosh, this is not going to work out, what kind of lessons did you learn from coaching at that level and with that team in particular?
Alignment. Coach Marinelli, I think, was a great, and I mean, would have been a great NFL head coach. And there was so much around him that wasn't aligned at the time. And where I think Dan has done a great job. I went up and saw those guys last year, and I remember walking into the building, and I got a knot in my stomach just because I just remember, the organization not being aligned. And when you walked in there, that's the first thing that I noticed is the alignment I think Dan's done an unbelievable job. And I was only there to watch an OTA practice, but I felt that. And, keeping everyone on the same page, keeping everyone aligned, keeping everyone understanding their responsibility and holding everyone accountable. I think, that was couple things that I learned there, but the alignment of the organization, I think, is probably the biggest life lesson that I learned during that time.
Yeah, when you look at the history of the Detroit Lions, I mean, you've got to go all the way back to like Bobby Lane in 1950s when they and the Browns were battling it out in the NFL. But then after that, the Lions were a second-tier group the whole time, it seemed like. And
it's really changed.
The last couple of years, you got to give him credit. The last couple of years, I really think regular season, I thought those are the guys that are going to make it to the Super Bowl. The way they were playing during regular season, they looked great.
They're really well coached. They got a bunch of talent. I think the offensive line is as good as any offensive line in that league. And they got backs. They play good defense. They got just crushed with injuries because when you watch the defensive side of the ball during OTAs, you went, wow, lights out. Hutch was a great edge rusher. They just had a bunch of really good players. But I think Dan's done an unbelievable job. And just like I said, you could just feel the alignment of the Detroit organization from top to bottom. And that's why he's doing well. He's a hell of a coach, hell of a person, but I think he's just got everyone in the building. And I'm sure the front office has done a great job, but you just sense everyone being on the same page and the alignment. I think, in the short time that I was there, you just felt it.
Yeah. He played the Commanders this past week, and they hit this freshman quarterback that is shocking the world, and he had a lights out game against him. And after the game, you could see Dan just hurting. Because he sinks everything into everything. You can tell that. That's hard part about being a head coach, isn't it? You do see.
Well, as you well know, and I never knew this as an assistant coach, you're never happy, especially in spring football. Like the offense might play well, and then you're disappointed with the defense or special teams. So there's always a problem. Right. You're always trying to put out a fire and fix it. Right. So I get it. I get it completely. That's why I need your wisdom. I need you to come up and spend a couple of days at training camp with me.
I don't care if whatever age you are, at 2:00 in the morning, you're still going to wake up at times going, how are we going to stop that? How are we going to score? It's the 2:00 in the morning head coaching syndrome. Yeah. We should all get it together.
Yes, I know that quite well,
all
Coach.
Awake. It's amazing.
But you had a great season. And Bowling Green's knocking it out of the park. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Scott about the Mid-American Conference and Bowling Green's success. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You are watching Object of the Game, and we are talking with Scot Loeffler, head coach of Bowling Green, which, your season, we had a great season.
Yeah, let me
go ahead.
Prep that. When you took this is your first head coaching job, wasn't it?
Yes.
Great. So I think I didn't want to skip over that.
Okay. Yeah.
It was, offensive coordinator.
You guys talk all the time, so you take it away, Dad.
Doing all these things and coordinate. He was all over the place. And then this was his opportunity to be a head coach. But typically in a situation like that, you're taking over a team that was needed a lot of work. You did.
They needed a lot of work. It was a wholesale change, and I know that you'll appreciate this, Chico. About the fourth day on the job, I walked into my office. I'm the only one in the building. I shut my door and I literally leaned back and I go, "What the hell did I just do?" And we had to make a lot of changes with personnel. Bowling Green is a place where, it's such a tight knit community, and you not only have to bring in good players, you got to bring in great people. And how we rebuilt the whole thing was recruiting the Midwest. Number one, the 4-hour radius is super important to us. Number two, recruiting enough talent. They had to have some talent, but we did a great job, I think, with recruiting really good people, and we really sunk a lot of time and energy, believe it or not, into the parents. I mean, I wanted to know these parents, and there's no secret in football. You got to have some talent, but you better have a bunch of really good human beings around you. And we stunk our first 3 years there. We were terrible. And then, these last 3, we've had winning seasons, bowl opportunity. Should have won the championship this year. I feel like the Detroit Lions, to be quite honest with you. We had a super good team. We get to the Miami of Ohio game. Whoever wins is going to the championship. Knew that it's going to come down to 3 plays on each side of the ball, and they made 3 and we didn't. And so, you're disappointed with the finish for sure, but we got to keep plugging along and keep moving the needle of the program.
Yeah, I want to stay on like this year and the MAC situation. That maybe people don't realize. Here you are, beginning of the year, and this your independent games. Okay,
Unbelievable.
Penn State. They only lost a semifinal, whatever that was. Texas A&M, who was ranked in the top 15 or whatever it was, an Old Dominion team was going. Now, as I look through, Miami played Northwestern, Cincinnati, and Notre Dame independent. Let's see, Akron played Ohio State, Rutgers, and South Carolina. I think our audience should hear about this a little bit.
Yeah,
it's hard enough to play the MAC schedule. I always, not that I was ever a betting man, but I had friends that would bet on college games. I never had enough money to do that. But I always said, do not bet on an MAC game because those games could go either way. I mean, it's a league that just, who knows who's going to win that day. But your independent schedule. And I think people should understand why you do that.
Yeah, there's really, in my opinion, there's 3 seasons of a MAC schedule. And the first season is generally anywhere between 2 and 3 opponents that are much better than you. And it's the way that the football program really survives because of the big payouts that you're getting from these big schools.
Yeah, I think people need to hear about this.
Yeah, it's you're going to walk away from one of those football games anywhere between $1.5 and $3 million based upon who you play. Right. Obviously, the better opponent that you're playing, the more money you're going to get. And we've done well. I don't know why we've done well against those adverse games. We beat Minnesota one year. We beat Georgia Tech. We take Penn State right down to the wire on a 2-minute drill. And then when we get to A&M in week 2, they took a touchdown away from us and we lose by 6. So we've been competitive in those games, but you're really in an uphill battle, in my opinion, in the MAC, just, at the beginning of the season, just to stay healthy. When you're playing those type of opponents and they've got depth and you don't, you're really walking into the second season, which I consider regular college football. And that's the MAC season that the games are played on Saturday. So you get about, I would say about 6 of those, 5 of those, where you're playing regular Saturday games. And you're coming off of playing against an absolute just torture chamber schedule at the beginning of the season. then you're in the MAC, and it all depends really on how beat up you are, of how you're going to do in that second half of the season, which I consider the 5 Saturday games. And then all of a sudden, the whole world turns upside down, and you're playing, the rest of the MAC season on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, which is a completely different schedule. It's cold. It's at night. It's the fan base isn't as good because you're not playing on a Saturday. So there's really 3 seasons to a MAC, a Mid-American Conference schedule.
Right. People should understand when they're hearing these details that you're saying. It's a financial reason why that's happening. I mean,
yes.
You're playing Penn State because Penn State's going to invite you in. They're going to have their 80, 90 people there. It's Penn State football, whatever it is. And they cut you a check. Hopefully football gets some of it. Usually it goes to the athletic department, I imagine, and that helps a lot of other sports. That's nice. That's okay. But you're carrying the bodies out, limping and everything like that. All right, great. Here's your check. Hand it to the athletic director, and you're going, next week we play whom? Texas A&M? Oh, sure. Where are we playing them?
At Texas A&M at night.
And they're writing a check for you. And you're, and it just, I understand. But that's, I don't know.
That's the challenging piece. And, you look at these records in the MAC, your 8 wins, 9 wins, 6, 7 wins. Those are great seasons in the Mid-American Conference. I mean, we've been 6-2 the last couple of years in the conference, and those are good seasons. But it's who you play in that first half of the season is absolutely really difficult, and you got to keep your kids' heads up. You got to be able to manage those first 4 games are generally. One of them is someone that you should beat, and then the next 3 are generally uphill battles.
Right. And kids, we're doing a great job for the athletic department. We're bringing them these checks, okay? But meanwhile, they're kids on crutches and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're really happy about that. But you got that. That's the league. That's the way.
It is the league.
It's tough. It's a tough way to do it, but again, the MAC is,
super competitive. Oh my gosh.
It's one of those any given day thing. And that's true. That's true.
It really is. The one common theme that you saw in the top 4 teams this year is the 1 through 4 both had the top defenses. And then, you look at who won the games, the rushing battle was absolutely imperative. And, normally we focus on the turnover battle, and generally we call it the daily double. It's a combination between winning the turnover battle and winning the explosion battle, runs plus 12 and passes plus 15. Generally speaking, when you win the turnover battle and you win the explosion battle, we call it the daily double. It's like 95% win, but it wasn't necessarily the case this year. It was really the teams that played really good defense and ran the ball extremely well. And that's probably, whenever you look at it, we were top 3 in all categories on offense and defense. But whenever you look at our rush offense, we were 7th. So we got to go back and run the ball better.
I love this conversation just because I know that this is probably what you guys used to do when you'd come in, Scott. So this is what Coach Kyle loves to do, is just sit here and talk football and talk how, games are working and everything. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I think it would be great, Scott, to pick your brain too on what you're looking for in high school kids. You kind of talked about it early on, but I can tell, with my close group of friends where kids are starting to get into the high school and college years, they're worried about, okay, so, how are they going to stand out? So you two are experts on this. And I think that that's worth a conversation, especially with NIL and everything that's coming into it. So when we come back, we're going to be talking about, like, if you have a kid in high school or like headed to high school and you know that they're an athlete, What are colleges looking for? That's when we come back. Welcome back. You were watching Object of the Game. We were talking about this new buzzword that you've been hearing over the past couple of years, portal. Yeah. Is a new thing to any of us older people who didn't have that when we were in college. Scot Loeffler is our guest, head coach of Bowling Green, and you guys know each other from years of talking over college recruits, but that landscape has changed.
Well, right now, Scott, I got to believe, season's wrapped up, the kids, and you have to bring almost every one of them in and re-recruit them. Because they could be jumping in the portal and not even coming to the office and telling you, hey, I'm leaving. Some of them do that.
Absolutely. You spend, when the season's over, you spend about 5 days re-recruiting your team. And a year ago, I got on literally on an airplane and in my car, and some of our very top players, I went and saw their parents and, re-recruited them. But, it's a total different change in the landscape right now in college athletics. And, I believe in portions of the transfer portal. I believe in portions of NIL. But right now it's the wild, wild west. There's no rules. There's a lot of issues with it. And, we've got to figure this out and get some really good foundation on how we're going to continue to do business. Because right now, I deep down, I don't know if this is sustainable. I don't know if it's good for kids. We've got to really, really wrap our hands around this problem.
Right. There was, like, in the Plain Dealer this morning, there was this thing that come on, the 40 or 50 majors, the Alabamas and Notre Dames and Ohio States, they got the ability to have like $20.5 million involved in the NIL to wheel and deal. Now, I mean, Scott, I don't think you have $20.5 million to wheel and deal.
I don't, and
I'm just sorry.
What we don't, and what we do is, we're recruiting guys that obviously are diamonds in the rough. We're finding guys that are, at the time, not good enough to be Power 4 guys. A lot of them develop into Power 4 guys because of development. But at the end of the day, what we've got to do is we've got to find every imaginable way other than football to keep these kids to want to be at Bowling Green. So you name the life design program. We get our kids suits and we get them business cards. We're constantly educating them of how to build resumes. We have classes actually on how to do all this. I bring in roughly 100 companies on April 5th to interview our kids. So we got to do everything under the sun other than football to keep the kids interested in Bowling Green, and then yet still find ways to build our team, get good at football. But, so there's some positives that have occurred with this. Every, my college experience, if there's one, thing that I could, that I was not happy with or I shouldn't say not happy with it. I thought, I had my contacts from the University of Michigan are through the roof of people other than that played football. But to sit and say that I was educated on how to build a resume, how to go out and find a job, I had to do that on my own. So, so all these extra programs that, these lower schools are trying to really build into their program, I think that's the positive about college football right now.
Right. That's needed for you to keep that kid. Hey, he's a scenario. He's a sophomore and he's had a heck of a year, and he's grown a little.
Yeah.
There's people after him. And you don't even know they're after him. And it's just,
no doubt. And I've treated it, Chico, at our level, just like I did when I was at the big schools with a kid that came in like after their junior year and said, Scott, I think I'm going to go to the NFL. And I would always educate that kid. If you're rounds 1 and 2, let's go. If you're not, you're going to lose a lot of money. You play better your senior year. You can move up rounds because you're never going to make that money up. But there's kids that come into my office that I literally go, okay, I've talked to the other head coach. You're not being used for depth. You're going to be a starter. You're going to play a lot of snaps, and it's time for you to go. And then there's other kids that I'd say, hey, listen, you're number one, not going to play very much. You're being used for depth. I know they're throwing a little bit of money at you, but in the long run, why don't you sit and sit at Bowling Green one more year, and you might develop it even more, and you'll have the ability to play and to keep your brand going. But so you have to have very honest conversations with these kids, very honest conversations with their parents. Sometimes they listen to you, sometimes they don't. And what makes me sick about it is when I know that a kid is going to go to an SEC school or a Big Ten school, and I know that they're only going to play 100 snaps in comparison to the 700 snaps they would play at Bowling Green. That's the part that I don't like. If a kid is going to go be a starter and go play the same amount of reps, and he's going to make $750,000, God bless him. And I help those kids. But the piece that I don't like is whenever kids are moving up for depth and they make a little bit of money, but they really lose opportunities to play the game.
It's just that way now,
Mm-hmm.
and
it is.
It's this wheeling and dealing it's again losing a little bit of that. Why are we playing the game at the amateur level? We're doing it because we school spirit, and that's fun. That was and an education, and I don't know. And I don't mean to throw another thing on, but what is going to happen? I think somebody's going to have to look at Title IX and go, you're throwing that much money out. Wait a minute. There's Title IX. Are we doing it to the other sports? Is it just football and basketball? Girls have basketball, and they're doing really well. They're going to get some money out of this, but somebody's going to go.
Well, they started that process last week, Chico.
Okay.
The NIL piece, I don't know how, because that could always be done through a third party organization. But the revenue sharing, the $20 million or $22 million that the Power Four schools are allowed to pay athletes, I've talked to my peers, and people were budgeting $16 million to go to football, $4 million to go to basketball, the other $2 million to go to women's sports. Well, last week they came out, the Title IX organization came out and said, hey, listen, things have got to be equal. So all of a sudden, whenever you're making these contracts and these promises for the dollar amount that's occurring, all of a sudden your budget isn't $16 million, it's cut in half. So I don't know where this is going to go. I know that they're trying to get this thing signed, this new House settlement is supposed to be signed April 7th, which could completely change what college football and college athletics look like, period. So it's going to be a very interesting. I think what we're going to do, Chico, is for the next 2 years, we're going to be at 40,000 feet flying an airplane and trying to keep the engine and trying to figure out how to build the engine at the same time.
It's the metaphor right there. It's just there's so many questions. And they're good questions, hey, whoa, Title IX, what do we do here? What in this whole court finding of being able to spend that money, and and Pandora's box is now open, metaphorically. I mean, the money's going to be flying around, and wow.
Well, the biggest thing that I'm concerned with, just because of what happened in my career and your career, is I walked away with a great education. You walked away with a great education. When you're transferring 2, 3, 4 times, each time you transfer, you're losing 20 to 30 credit hours. So how are you going to graduate?
Right.
So this graduation piece, we haven't filtered or really thought about, how does that affect graduation? So it's great. You're making all this money, but at the end of the day, your most wealth is going to be obtained through your degree. And even if you make it in the NFL, you're only going to, the average right now is 4 years. So you're going to be 28 years old, 26 years old, 27 years old. You're going to have to do something else. So this education piece, that's where, you've always obtained your wealth through being able to be educated and get a good job. So they really got to look at this whole thing in the big picture.
Right. There's not much conversation about, hey, they're getting their degree in something. Don't even hear
You're
that.
exactly right.
Dangerous.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk, speaking of education, this is, our last segment usually focuses on a classroom routine that Coach Kyle used to do with a quote and a vocab word. Scott, he gave you a list of vocab words. When we come back, we're going to take a look at which one you chose as something
You
that
go
would
two. I said
one or two that that really kind of sums up how what you take away from your career and your experience. So we'll be right back. We are back with Object of the Game and the vocab word. Now, this is where we're taking a look at the life lessons that sports and career have taught you, Scott, and what you have looked at, as this is my defining moment. So, Dad, talk about the vocab word. What did you prepare him for?
Being an English teacher, vocabulary. We had vocabulary books. Remember, you had to study vocabulary from a book, right, and everything like that. But come on, sports in general, but football specifically. There's a list of themes there, right? That come on, those come up. Those are involved. And so we've only done 8 of these or whatever, but I don't want to know until the show, until we sit down, what ones the person picks out. So I'm not even going to try to guess.
I feel Coach Kyle exactly like how you had to go as a player and a coach into Coach Carr's office. He'd have this huge dictionary, and you'd have to write a word down and the definition, and you'd walk in and have to give the word and the definition. So I feel right at home with this, Coach Kyle.
I never knew that. That's neat.
Yes.
That's neat.
So whenever you walked into Coach Carr's office and you were in trouble, you thought about every forgiveness word you could ever imagine.
Oh my! Oh, that's a good one.
Well, hopefully this is slightly less pressure than that.
Pressure.
Yeah,
Something pressure.
All right, Scott. So what jumped out to you?
The word that I chose was preparation.
Yeah, and why is that? What explain?
Well, I honestly believe there's a ton of smart people out there, and coming from my background and all the things that I've learned from the game and how I grew up, it's all about your work ethic and being prepared. And I've seen a lot of smart people that have been lazy, that don't get as far as they want to get in life because of not being prepared and not having a work ethic to be prepared. And I honestly believe, and it's the way that I coach the quarterbacks. You never want a cocky guy whatsoever, but you want a confident guy. And I always believe that through great preparation and doing things the right way, that you could have confidence. And we always said it was inner arrogance. You prepared so well that you were so confident that you would be able to get the job done because of the work that you put in. So that's the word. I'm a quarterback, so when you look at that word, that's how the great ones have made it, is through great preparation.
Yeah, I probably could have thought that you were going to guess something, and I do that. I could have guessed that in a way.
I know you would have.
I'm looking at it going, he's coached his whole, his whole life preparation, because, you're in school, right? And there's a test the next day. Kids cram. Well, I don't know how much they're learning by the cram, but football teaches them what? You're preparing.
Yep.
For how many days? This isn't just, I'm going to show up the day before the game and everything's going to work. Football teaches them point blank, no, you're not. There is a long, steady path of preparation to get you where you have a chance. So there it is. Tell he's a football coach.
Yeah.
Right
You
there.
get the game. You get what you deserve, and that's how it's always been. And I've watched all your teams, and they were always prepared. And the best of the best, Chico. I love you. I mean, I'm telling you, you are a great coach, great human being, and I miss walking into St. Ignatius and seeing you.
You're kind.
He's going to come to you. He's going to come to
Yes,
you now.
you're coming to me, so we need some wisdom.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm glad. I'd gladly do that. Be fun to get out on the field again. I'll tell you that. For me, that'd be just great.
Well, I just want you to watch and see how we do business and help us. And, with your eyes and your knowledge, we're going to be able to move the needle of our team by your visit. And I've had some really good coaches that have done that. And I can't wait to have you spend a couple days with us and help us improve as coaches, and improve as with players, and improve as a program, because obviously no one's done it better than you, Chico. No one's done it better.
You're kind. So we're doing it, period.
Awesome.
Doesn't take long to drive out to Bowling Green. Doesn't take that long.
Hour and 45 minutes from you. Well, you're on the east side. You live on the east side, right?
I'm a West Sider.
Yep.
Are you West Sider?
Even closer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are you kidding?
Well, West Side, then it's an hour and 45.
There you go.
Yep.
How
Easy. Hey, he also does this thing, Scott. He was known for this during his teaching years, that if you got in trouble, and you're not in trouble, Scott, but if you got in trouble, you'd have to write a quote. He would take a quote from literature, and then the student would have to write it 50, 100 times. 50?
Not 1,500. They do have to have
50.
homework.
50
times.
times.
It had to be written.
But it was always a meaningful quote. So we just have the tradition here where we end with a quote that he has picked for you.
And typically it was.
Well, I'm getting out my notepad here, Chico.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, it typically was Shakespeare. I taught Shakespeare with the seniors for a long while. And if you're able to go somewhere and quote Shakespeare, people think you're smart. Little do they know the kid screwed up, and I had him write it 50 times, and that's why he remembers it, But they don't have to tell that story. They can, oh, yes, well, Shakespeare once said, I can give it one of those. All right, but I picked one out for you.
All right.
I'm thinking of you, and I'm thinking of I don't know if I'll always be able to do that, but we're going to see how it is. All right, now this is from the play As You Like It, which is a comedy. And typically, yes, there is a girl disguised as a guy. In Shakespeare, any disguise works. You put a mustache on, nobody knows who the hell you are.
Yeah.
They could be your family, and they go, who's that stranger? But especially the girl. I mean, it's a girl. Come on.
Yeah.
Are you blind? No, it works. Anyway. And it's a love triangle, and okay, that's enough of that. But the quote, ready? This is Act 2, Scene 1. Ready? Sweet are the uses of adversity. Now, you got to think about that. Sweet are the uses of adversity. Come on, the season doesn't go perfectly. Every practice doesn't go perfectly. And it's adversity. But sweet because why? Because you learn from adversity. As much as you want to win a game, you learn a lot from the games you lose. And that pays off later. So sweet are the uses of adversity. If you use the adversity right, you're going to get better. You're going to get better.
That's a good coach quote right
That's
there.
a coach quote.
That is a coaching quote right there. You wrote it down,
Thank
Scott?
you. I wrote it down.
Good.
Sweet are the uses of adversity.
There you go.
That's how you're going to kick off the next pregame speech.
I'm going to actually do it
Quote
on my I've got a team meeting on Saturday, and that's how I'm starting it out.
Okay, but you don't have to show up in a, Shakespearean garb, with the tights and the whole bit. Don't do that.
Chico, no, I'm not going to do that.
Just go with it. Just go with the quote.
Yeah. Scott, this has been amazing. I've loved
you
watching you guys
awesome.
interact and talk about this. And so many people have their kids thinking about, am I playing college sports? What is it going to be like? It's just been really insightful to watch you guys discuss.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, thanks for having me, you guys. I really appreciate it. And Chico, I'll give you our schedule. You come up anytime you want.
It's a deal.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You'll have to take some selfies and share those with everybody then. Yeah.
You can do that.
All right.
I always used to watch you on the news. Your dad would always brag on you. And
You're a viewer. Okay, good.
Yes, I was a viewer.
Yes. Awesome. Well, now we're doing this.
Very cool.
Yeah. Scott, I really appreciate it. And maybe I'll show
All
up to
right.
practice just to watch.
Hey,
So, yeah,
there you go.
see how it
That
goes.
would be great, Maureen. You
Thank
guys have a great one.
Thanks.
Okay.
You
All
too.
right, Scott.
You too. We'll talk to you soon.
See you soon.
And thanks to all of you for watching Object of the Game. You can catch all of our episodes featuring Chuck Kyle and me, Maureen Kyle, on all of the Big Play accounts. We are talking about Big Play's Twitter account or X, whatever you want to refer to it as, Big Play YouTube page. And also, if you want it all in one place, just download the free Big Play app, which is available on iOS and Roku. We'll see you back here next week.